Hey guys! Before we dive into tonight's little journey into the strange world of the human mind, do me one favor, like the video and subscribe and let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? It blows my mind every time to see people tuning in from all corners of the world. Wherever you are, however late it is, get comfortable, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum. And let's begin. There is something about the night that changes the way the mind behaves. During the day, thoughts come and go. Memories stay quiet. The past feels distant. But at night, everything feels closer. The room gets quiet. Your body finally stops moving. And your brain notices the stillness. For most of human history, stillness at night meant something very different than it does today. It meant vulnerability. It meant exposure. It meant danger. So your brain learned a habit it never unlearned. When the world goes dark, it stays alert. Not loudly, not aggressively, just enough to notice everything. And in that quiet alertness, the mind begins to wander, not forward, backward, into old thoughts, old memories, old moments that didn't get your attention during the day. You're not imagining this. Your brain really does change modes at night. During the day, it's busy reacting to the outside world. At night, when the outside world goes quiet, it turns inward. This is when the emotional part of the brain becomes louder. Not because something is wrong, but because nothing is distracting it anymore. The mind doesn't like empty space. When the room goes quiet, it fills the silence with something familiar. And what's more familiar than your own past? So memories rise, not because they matter now, not because they need to be solved, but because the brain finally has room to notice them. At night, the mind is not trying to hurt you. It's trying to review. It's checking, scanning, asking a quiet ancient question. Is there anything we missed? And if the answer isn't obvious, it starts looking. This is why memories feel sharper at night. Not because they're more important, but because your emotional filter is turned up and your logical filter is turned down. During the day, logic keeps things in proportion. It reminds you that time has passed, that you survived, that you're not the same person anymore. At night, logic gets tired. Emotion takes over. Emotion doesn't speak in timelines. It speaks in sensations. A tight chest, a heavy feeling, a sudden wave of embarrassment, regret, or sadness. To the emotional brain, it doesn't matter if something happened 10 years ago. If it hurt once, it can still hurt now. That's why nighttime memories feel real. They bypass thinking and go straight to feeling. You might notice that your brain doesn't bring up random memories. It doesn't replay boring afternoons or neutral conversations. It chooses specific moments. Moments where you felt exposed, rejected, ashamed, powerless. Moments that were emotionally unfinished. Your brain treats unfinished emotion as unfinished danger. From an evolutionary point of view, anything unresolved is risky. So the brain keeps it close. It reopens the memory, not to torture you, but to learn from it. It believes that replaying pain will prevent it in the future. This strategy worked a very long time ago. But at night, in a quiet bedroom, it only creates restlessness. Another strange thing happens at night. The brain loses context. Context is what keeps memories small. Context reminds you of everything that came after. The growth, the change, the distance. But when you're tired, context fades, and memories lose their frame. They stop feeling like chapters, and start feeling like open scenes. That's why you can feel perfectly fine all day and emotionally raw the moment you lie down. Nothing new happened. Your brain just changed settings. At night, the mind becomes a historian, not an accurate one, a dramatic one. It digs through the past, not looking for truth, but looking for meaning. And meaning feels heavier in the dark. This is also why self-criticism shows up at night. You replay what you said, what you didn't say, what you wish you had done differently. This isn't wisdom. It's fatigue. A tired brain doesn't analyze gently. It circles. It loops. It believes that if it looks long enough, something will finally make sense. But nighttime thinking doesn't lead to insight. It leads to repetition. And repetition keeps you awake. There's something important to remember here. Nighttime thoughts feel urgent, but they are not. They feel meaningful, but they are incomplete. They show you emotion without perspective. They show you pain without distance. They are signals from a brain running on low energy. Low energy brains exaggerate. They make small things feel large. Old things feel current. Unfinished things feel threatening. This doesn't mean your memories are wrong. It means the timing is. Night is not a time for resolution. Night is a time for rest. But the brain doesn't always understand that. So if a memory comes up tonight, you don't have to follow it. You don't have to analyze it. You don't have to argue with it. You can notice it and let it pass. Like a sound in the distance, like a cloud drifting by. You can remind yourself quietly, this doesn't need my attention right now. This can wait. This is my night brain talking. Even that small reminder can change the way the thought feels, because the brain responds to permission. When you stop fighting a thought, it often softens on its own. Your mind is tired. Tired minds bring up old things because they don't have the energy for new ones. That doesn't mean those memories define you. It means your brain is sorting, and sorting doesn't need your help right now. Nothing from your past needs to be decided tonight. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be understood. You've done enough for today. You can let the mind wander. Without following it, you can rest. Sometimes the memories that come back at night aren't even the painful ones. Sometimes they're gentle. A place you once felt safe. A person you once loved. A version of yourself that felt lighter. And somehow, those memories can hurt just as much. Not because they were bad, but because they're gone. At night, the brain has a strange habit of comparing. It compares who you were to who you are. It compares what you had to what you have now. And comparison, when you're tired, turns into longing. Longing doesn't feel sharp during the day. During the day, there's motion. There's distraction. There's forward movement. At night, longing feels heavier because there's nothing to balance it. The brain drifts back into moments where things felt simpler, warmer, easier. Not to comfort you, but to measure distance. And distance without energy feels like loss. This is why nostalgia can feel like grief at night. Not because your life is worse now, but because your brain is too tired to hold both truths at once. It can't hold gratitude and sadness together. So it chooses one, and sadness is louder. A tired brain doesn't see progress. It sees gaps. It notices what's missing. It notices what changed. It notices what didn't stay. This isn't a judgment on your life. It's a limitation of a tired mind. At night, the brain loses its ability to zoom out. It sees close-up only. So a single memory can feel like a summary. A single moment can feel like proof. Proof that something was lost. proof that something went wrong, proof that time is moving too fast. But these conclusions don't come from clarity. They come from exhaustion. When the brain is rested, it can say, that mattered and this matters too. That was beautiful and this is different. That time passed and I'm still here. At night, it can't do that, so it feels everything one-sided. That's why emotions feel absolute. If you feel lonely, it feels permanent. If you feel regret, it feels defining. If you feel sadness, it feels endless. The brain forgets that feelings move. It forgets that states change. It forgets that morning exists. This is also why the mind becomes harsher with you at night. Self-criticism loves darkness. It thrives when your defenses are low. You replay conversations and imagine better responses. You replay choices and imagine better outcomes. You imagine a version of yourself who said the right thing, did the right thing, knew what you know now. But this isn't insight. It's hindsight without compassion. The brain is trying to regain control. It believes that if it criticizes enough, you'll somehow be safer next time. But safety doesn't come from criticism. It comes from rest. A tired brain confuses tension with preparation. It thinks staying tense will help. But tension only keeps you awake. At night, the brain also starts blending timelines. Past mistakes mix with future fears. Old memories start predicting new disasters. You remember a failure and imagine failing again. You remember rejection and imagine it happening in the future. The brain draws straight lines where none exist. This happens because the brain hates uncertainty, and the future is uncertain. So it uses the past as a reference point. It says, this happened before. It could happen again. Not because it will, but because the brain prefers familiar fear over unknown possibility. At night, possibility feels dangerous. Certainty feels safer, even if that certainty is negative. That's why worst-case scenarios feel so convincing at night. They feel solid, defined, predictable. A tired brain would rather believe something bad is coming than sit with not knowing. But prediction is not intuition. Nighttime fear is not a warning. It's imagination fueled by fatigue. The brain is not seeing the future. It's replaying the past with different costumes. And because logic is quiet, the fear feels believable. It feels like truth. But nighttime truth is distorted truth. It's truth without balance. Another thing the brain does at night is turn inward. When it can't find danger outside, it looks for danger inside. This is when thoughts like these appear. What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why can't I just be normal? These thoughts are not questions. They are stress responses. The brain feels unsafe and looks for a reason. If it can't find one in the world, it creates one in you. Self-blame is a form of control. The brain believes that if you are the problem, then you can be fixed. But you're not the problem. You're just tired. A rested brain doesn't ask these questions. It doesn't spiral inward. It doesn't doubt your worth. It knows how to be kind. Night takes that ability away. This is why you should never trust self-judgment at night. Not because you're lying to yourself, but because the part of the brain responsible for fairness is offline. At night, emotion speaks without moderation. It speaks loudly. It speaks confidently. It speaks in absolutes. It says, always, never, everyone, no one. Those words don't belong to reality. They belong to exhaustion. If you notice your thoughts becoming harsh, that's a sign to stop listening, not to fight them, just to stop engaging You wouldn't take advice from someone who hasn't slept in days. Your brain hasn't either. Nighttime thoughts are not instructions. They are symptoms. Symptoms of a nervous system that hasn't powered down yet. You don't need to solve them. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to respond. You can let them pass, like static noise, like a radio playing in another room. You don't have to turn it off. You can just stop paying attention. The brain calms faster when it feels ignored than when it feels argued with. Nothing needs your effort right now. Nothing needs your energy. This is not a moment for understanding. This is a moment for letting go. You can let the past be the past for tonight. You can let the future stay unanswered. You can stay right here, breathing, resting, listening. There is nothing missing in this moment. Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to happen. You are allowed to rest without resolution. As the night goes on, something subtle begins to happen. The thoughts don't disappear. They just lose their sharp edges. They stop demanding answers and start fading into the background. This is what happens when the brain finally begins to tire of its own noise. Not because it found solutions, but because it ran out of energy to keep searching. The mind doesn't calm down by force. It calms down by surrender. When you stop asking it to make sense, it slowly lets go. At night, the brain wants certainty, but rest doesn't come from certainty. It comes from permission. Permission to not know. Permission to not decide. Permission to not understand. You don't need clarity to sleep. You need safety. And safety doesn't come from answers. It comes from stillness. From knowing that nothing is required of you right now. That you're allowed to pause. The night brain doesn't want progress. It wants reassurance. Reassurance that nothing bad is happening in this moment. That you are not late. Not behind. Not failing. Just tired. A tired body. A tired mind. A nervous system that stayed alert for too long. If your thoughts are slowing now, that's not because they were resolved. It's because they were heard. The brain relaxes when it feels noticed. When you stop pushing it away and stop demanding it be quiet, paradoxically, that's when it quiets. The night is not the enemy. It's just a mirror without filters. It shows you everything at once, because there's nothing else to look at. But mirrors don't ask for action. They just reflect. And reflections don't need to be judged. They can be observed and then left behind. You don't need to carry every thought with you. You don't need to follow every memory. You don't need to answer every question your mind asks. Some questions don't want answers. They want rest. As the body grows heavier, the mind naturally loosens its grip. Breathing becomes slower. Thoughts become softer. Images blur at the edges. This isn't something you have to make happen. It happens when effort stops. The brain is very good at sleeping. Once it feels safe enough, safety doesn't mean happiness. It means nothing is chasing you. Nothing is demanded. Nothing is urgent. Right now, in this moment, there is nowhere you need to go. No role you need to play. No version of yourself you need to become. You can simply be here. The past can wait. The future can wait. And as the minutes pass, the night continues to do what it always does. It slows things down. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Just enough for the edges of thought to soften. You might notice that your attention drifts more easily now. You're not holding on to every sentence. You're not following every idea. That's exactly how it's supposed to be. The mind doesn't need direction right now. It needs space. Space where nothing is demanded. Space where nothing needs to make sense. When the brain realizes that no answers are required, it begins to loosen its grip. Thoughts start arriving more slowly. And when they arrive, they don't stay as long. They pass through like faint echoes. This is the state your nervous system recognizes as safe. Not excitement, not happiness, just absence of threat, stillness without pressure. The body understands this language. It begins to lower its guard. Muscles soften. Breathing deepens without effort. You don't have to control that. You don't have to notice it. The body does this on its own. Once it realizes there's nothing left to prepare for. At night, preparation turns into rest. Only when the brain accepts that tomorrow exists, that whatever isn't solved now can wait. And it can wait because you are allowed to pause. Pausing is not quitting. Pausing is not giving up. Pausing is part of being human. Your brain has been active all day, thinking, deciding, responding. Night is when that constant motion slows, not because you force it, but because energy naturally runs low. Low energy isn't failure. Low energy is a signal that it's safe to stop. And when the brain stops trying to optimize, it begins to settle. You might notice gaps between thoughts now, small quiet spaces, moments where nothing particular is happening. Those moments don't need to be filled. They are the goal. The mind doesn't need to be occupied. It needs to be allowed to idle. Idling is not wasted time. It's how systems cool down. It's how balance returns. Your mind has its own rhythm. When you stop interrupting it, it finds its way back to rest. There is no technique required, no special breathing, no effort, just permission. Permission to not engage. Permission to let the words fade. Permission to let the mind drift wherever it wants. If a memory appears, it can pass. If an image forms, it can blur. If a thought starts, it doesn't need an ending. Everything is allowed to be unfinished tonight. Unfinished things don't need attention right now. They only need time. Time does most of the work, and night is made of time. Long stretches of it, uninterrupted, quiet. This is why rest happens here. Not because the night solves anything, but because it removes the need to solve. You are not required to be alert. You are not required to monitor yourself. You are not required to improve anything. Even awareness can soften now. You don't need to listen closely. You don't need to stay with the words. You can let them wash over you or fade into the background. The voice can become just another sound in the room, like distant air, like a fan, like the quiet hum of the night itself. Your body knows how to sleep. It learned long before a language, long before thought. All it needs is the absence of urgency, and urgency fades when nothing asks for your response. There is nothing asking now, no message to answer, no decision to make, no version of yourself to defend. You can let the day dissolve. Let the hours behind you blur together. They don't need to be reviewed. They don't need to be judged. They already happened. The night doesn't want a summary. It wants release. Release from narrative. Release from identity. Release from effort. You don't need to be anyone right now. You don't need to hold yourself together. The bed holds you. The room holds you. The night holds you. You can let your awareness drift downward. Not into sleep necessarily, just downward, into heaviness, into softness, into less thinking, less doing, less holding. The brain becomes quieter. When it realizes nothing is coming next, no demand, no expectation, just time passing gently. If you wake later and the voice is still there, That's fine. If you drift in and out, that's fine. Nothing needs to change. The night continues whether you're aware of it or not. And eventually, without effort, without noticing the moment it happens, the mind lets go a little more, and a little more, and a little more, until thinking becomes optional, until awareness thins, until rest arrives quietly, without needing permission. And even then, nothing ends. The night simply continues, doing what it has always done, slowing things down. The slowing doesn't happen all at once. It happens in layers. First, the need to understand fades. Then the need to react. Then, even the need to listen closely begins to dissolve. The mind starts to treat thoughts the way it treats background noise. Present but unimportant. A sentence may begin and never finish. An image may appear without detail. A feeling may rise without a story attached to it. This is not confusion. This is the mind conserving energy. The brain is very practical when it's tired. It stops investing in things that don't matter right now. And right now, very little matters. There is no danger to assess, no problem to solve, no future to prepare for. So the brain slowly powers down its monitoring systems. The part that checks, the part that evaluates, the part that keeps watch. They don't shut off suddenly. They just stop reporting. And when nothing is being reported, there is nothing to respond to. That's when rest becomes possible. Not forced rest, natural rest. The kind that happens when vigilance is no longer required. You might notice your sense of time becoming softer now. Minutes don't feel distinct. Moments blend together. This is normal. Time is tracked by attention, and attention is loosening. When attention loosens, time stretches and thins. The brain no longer marks each moment. It stops counting. And without counting, there is no pressure. No sense of how long. Just presence without measurement. This is one of the quiet gifts of the night. It removes the clock from the mind. The body doesn't live in hours. It lives in rhythms. Breath, heartbeat, warmth, weight. These rhythms don't need awareness. They continue whether you notice them or not. You don't need to sync with them. You already are. As effort fades, the mind begins to wander in softer ways, not into clear memories, not into sharp worries, but into fragments, colors without shape, sounds without source, thoughts without meaning. This drifting is not a problem. It's a transition. The space between thinking and sleeping. A space where nothing needs definition. The brain likes this space. It feels familiar. It feels old. Long before language. This is how rest began. A gradual dimming. Not an on-off switch. Just less light. Less sharpness. Less clarity. And clarity is overrated at night. Clarity is for morning. Night is for release. Release from sharp edges. Release from identity. Release from the constant sense of me. You don't have to hold on to who you are right now. You can let that loosen too. Names don't matter here. Stories don't matter here. Only sensation. Only softness. Only the gentle pull downward. If a thought tries to form fully, it may dissolve halfway through. That's fine. Incomplete thoughts are a sign that the mind is letting go. Completion requires energy, and energy is no longer being spent. The brain is choosing rest over resolution. That choice doesn't require your input. It happens naturally when pressure disappears. You might feel moments of brief awareness, followed by gaps. Little disappearances, little blanks. Those blanks are not emptiness. They are rest. The mind resting from itself. Each blank makes the next one easier. The nervous system recognizes the pattern. It remembers this state, and it leans into it. Nothing pulls you forward. Nothing pulls you back. There is no direction to follow. Just stillness widening. The voice can fade further now. Words don't need to land. They don't need to connect. They can simply exist, and then not exist. Your awareness doesn't need to stay with them. It can drift anywhere or nowhere. Both are fine. There is nothing to miss. Nothing important will happen in the next moment. And the moment after that, the night stretches long and quiet. It does not rush you. It does not expect anything. It simply holds time open. And in that openness, the mind grows quiet. Not silent, just uninterested. Uninterested in effort. Uninterested in control. Uninterested in meaning. Meaning requires wakefulness. Rest requires surrender. And surrender is not something you do. It's something that happens when you stop doing. Your body knows this. Your mind remembers this. You don't need to remind them. You can let everything slow at its own pace. The slowing continues, gradual, unnoticed, until awareness thins even more, until thoughts feel distant, until the idea of effort feels far away. Nothing is ending. Nothing is beginning. The night simply continues, being what it is. And you continue being here, without effort, without demand, without needing to be aware of being aware, just resting in the long, quiet stretch of the night. The quiet stretches on without effort. Nothing is trying to pull your attention anymore. Thoughts may still appear, but they arrive without weight. They don't ask to be followed. They don't ask to be finished. They come the way distant sounds come through a wall. You notice them briefly, and then they fade. The mind is no longer interested in holding shape. Sharp edges soften first, then outlines, then even the need for form itself. Awareness becomes wide and loose, not focused on anything in particular. Just present. This is the state the body recognizes as rest. Not sleep yet, but close enough that nothing needs to change. Breathing continues on its own. You don't need to guide it. The body has been breathing long before you ever paid attention to it. It knows exactly what to do when left alone. Heartbeat settles into its own rhythm. You don't need to count it. You don't need to feel it. It's enough that it's there. The nervous system begins to trust the stillness. Trust builds slowly. It doesn't announce itself. It simply removes tension where it isn't needed. Small muscles let go first. The jaw, the tongue, the space behind the eyes. Then larger areas soften. Shoulders sink. The back releases. The legs grow heavier. Heaviness is not resistance. Heaviness is permission. The body understands that it doesn't need to hold itself up anymore. Gravity takes over, and gravity is patient. It doesn't rush. It simply waits for effort to stop. Thoughts become more fragmented now. Pieces without structure. A word without context. An image without meaning. A sensation without a name. This is not disorientation. This is disengagement. The brain turning off unnecessary systems, just like lights going out in empty rooms, one by one, without drama. Nothing important is being lost. Everything important is already safe. You don't need to track what's happening. You don't need to stay with the words. You don't need to remember anything that was said. Memory is not needed here. Understanding is not needed here. Only rest. And rest is already happening. The night doesn't measure progress. It doesn't check whether you're doing this correctly. There is no correct way. There is only less. Less effort. Less tension. less need. Awareness floats instead of grips. It drifts instead of follows. If a moment of clarity appears, it can pass. If a moment of blankness appears, it can stay. Nothing needs to be preferred. The mind no longer evaluates. Evaluation takes energy, and energy is being conserved now. The sense of self becomes softer too, not gone, just less defined. You don't need to think about who you are. You don't need to hold your story together. Stories rest at night. They wait until morning. Right now, there is no need for identity. Only sensation, only quiet, only the gentle continuation of time. Time without markers, time without urgency. Moments no longer stack on top of each other. They blend, they blur, they lose their edges. This is why it feels like drifting. Drifting doesn't require direction. It doesn't require intention. It simply happens when nothing pushes back. You may notice small gaps where nothing is happening at all. No thought, no image, no feeling. Those gaps are not emptiness. They are rest in its purest form, the mind resting from itself. Each gap makes the next one easier. The brain recognizes the pattern. It stops checking. It stops monitoring. It stops asking whether it's okay to let go. It already knows. The voice can soften further now. It can slow. It can stretch. Words may become less distinct. That's fine. The meaning has already done its work. And now meaning can dissolve too. There is nothing left to carry. Nothing left to hold. Nothing left to prepare for. Just the night continuing, quietly, patiently, holding space, while effort fades, and awareness drifts deeper into rest. The night does not rush. It has nowhere to go. It stretches gently, moment by moment, without asking anything of you. Your awareness can become even looser now, not attached to the words, not attached to the silence between them. Just present in a very soft way. The mind is no longer trying to understand what comes next. It has stopped expecting sequence, stopped expecting meaning, stopped expecting direction, and without expectation, there is no tension. Tension only exists when something is supposed to happen. Nothing is supposed to happen now. The brain senses this, and when it senses it, it releases another layer, another small layer of alertness, another habit of checking, another reflex of control. You don't need to notice that release. It happens quietly, like a knot loosening on its own. Once it's no longer pulled tight, thoughts now feel less like sentences and more like impressions, a vague sense of color, a sense of movement without motion. A feeling without a reason. This is the mind slipping into a more primitive rhythm, a rhythm older than words, older than analysis. This rhythm does not question itself. It simply continues. Breathing flows without instruction. Air moves in, air moves out. The body adjusts subtly. Small shifts you don't need to track. Comfort organizes itself. The nervous system learns that it is allowed to power down. Not all at once. Just enough. Enough to rest. Enough to soften. Enough to stop scanning. The brain is very good at scanning. It does it automatically. But it is also very good at stopping once it realizes scanning is unnecessary. That realization doesn't come from thought. It comes from absence. Absence of threat, absence of demand, absence of urgency. You are not being watched. Nothing is waiting. Nothing is about to happen. The room remains the same. The night remains quiet. And this sameness is soothing. The brain likes predictability. When nothing changes, it relaxes. Change requires attention. Sameness allows rest. The longer nothing changes, the less the mind tries to interpret. Eventually, interpretation feels unnecessary, like reading the same sentence again and again, until it no longer feels like language. Just shapes, just sound, just something passing through. Awareness can thin even more. You don't need to stay awake for this. You don't need to listen for anything important. There is nothing important embedded here. Only rhythm, only continuity, only the gentle unfolding of time. Time that doesn't ask to be measured. Time that doesn't need to be remembered. Moments no longer feel separate. They blend into a single, extended now. This is not boredom. This is disengagement. The mind disengaging from effort. Effort dissolves when it isn't required, and nothing requires it now. You don't need to follow the voice. You don't need to resist it either. It can fade into the background, like a sound you stop noticing. Once you realize it isn't important, the body is comfortable enough. Comfort doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to be sufficient. Sufficient to stop adjusting. Sufficient to stop checking. Sufficient to stop holding. Heaviness deepens in a neutral way. Not pulling, not pressing, just settling. Settling into the surface beneath you. Settling into gravity. Gravity is steady. It doesn't fluctuate. It doesn't surprise. It is always there. That reliability is calming. The body leans into it naturally. Muscles no longer hold unnecessary tension. They let go because they can. Because nothing requires them to stay ready. The mind mirrors this release. Less effort in thought. Less clarity. Less structure. And with less structure, there is less to maintain. Maintenance takes energy. Energy is no longer being spent. The night allows systems to idle. Idling is not inactivity. It's restoration. It's quiet recalibration. It's the state where nothing is optimized and nothing is corrected. Just allowed. Allowed to be unfinished. Allowed to be vague. Allowed to be slow. If awareness drifts away completely for a moment, that's fine. If it comes back briefly, that's fine too. There is no direction to maintain, no line to follow, no thread to hold on to. You can let go of the idea of letting go. Even that can rest. The night continues to hold everything gently, without comment, without instruction, without expectation. And you continue resting within it, quietly, softly, without needing to know what comes next.